The alien girl's ears turned purple. When she saw him, everyone the city on Veridian 5 was alive with color, sound, and movement. Market stalls stretched as far as the eye could see, each one glowing under artificial lights that reflected off the sleek metal walkways and domed skylines. The air smelled of sizzling alien delicacies and the faint metallic tang of machinery. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved about, some with elongated limbs, others with translucent skin, and a few that floated above the ground on tiny anti-gravity pads. In the midst of this controlled chaos, one young alien girl, Leora, moved carefully, her long ears twitching at every sound. She was small compared to most of the crowd, and her delicate frame made her look fragile, yet there was an alertness in her movements that suggested she was far from helpless. Her ears were sensitive, far more than the average Veridionians. They could pick up conversations from across the square and detect subtle changes in emotions by sensing the vibrations in voices. Normally, her ears remained a pale, soft lavender, but lately they had begun to change color unpredictably. Sometimes they turned a bright pink when she was excited, a soft blue when she was sad, and though she had never experienced it before, a deep purple when something remarkable or unusual caught her attention. Today, as she walked past a row of food vendors, her ears flickered with faint purple tinges, though she didn't understand why. Her attention was caught by a human who was kneeling beside a malfunctioning hovering drone. He was completely focused, his hands moving swiftly, and his face showed concentration without a hint of fear. Leora had seen humans before, but only in passing. They were generally considered weak, primitive, and clumsy by most alien standards. They had thin skin, no protective scales, and in most cases, lacked the specialized abilities that many alien species took for granted. Yet something about this human made her ears flare. Deep, rich purple spread over her delicate appendages, and she found herself frozen in place for a moment, unable to look away. The human didn't notice her. His dark hair fell in front of his eyes, but he barely moved it aside, his focus completely on the drone. He pressed buttons, twisted small wires, and tapped gently on its metallic surface. The drone had stopped hovering and wobbled dangerously close to the ground. With a soft click, it began to stabilize, and the human muttered under his breath in a language Leora didn't understand. Around her, the market carried on. A three-armed merchant bargained loudly with a floating customer, while a creature shaped like a shimmering cube floated past, leaving a trail of small sparks. Most aliens didn't even notice the human. To them, he blended into the chaos, another minor annoyance in the crowded city. But Leora's ears remained a deep purple, a signal of something she couldn't explain. She felt curiosity, excitement, and something warmer she didn't yet have words for. Unable to resist, she moved closer. Her steps were cautious, careful not to draw attention. She watched as the human finished his work, standing up slowly. The drone hovered steadily now, and he stepped back, examining it with satisfaction. His expression was calm, but she noticed something else, a quiet confidence, almost like he belonged here more than anyone else around him. Suddenly, the drone activated fully and began to carry small packages to nearby stalls. Other aliens scattered, startled by its sudden movement, but the human didn't panic. He adjusted a small lever on the device, and it began moving with precision, delivering items to their correct locations. Leora felt her ears pulse deeper. How could someone so fragile-looking command such control? She blinked, trying to process the idea that this human, whom everyone else would dismiss, had done something remarkable without even trying to show off. Some nearby aliens noticed the change in her ears. One elderly Veridionian with translucent skin nudged his companion and whispered something that Leora caught in passing. "Her ears, they're purple. Why now?" The companion shrugged, more curious than concerned. Leora felt a slight flush on her face, not from embarrassment but from the attention. Usually she could control her ears' color, but this time she couldn't. She didn't even understand why they changed. Her curiosity overwhelmed her caution. She began to follow the human, staying a few steps behind as he weaved through the crowded market. He carried no weapons, no flashy gadgets, just a small bag slung over his shoulder and an air of quiet purpose. Leora noticed the way others barely gave him a second glance, how they underestimated him. And yet in her mind, he was already extraordinary. She followed him through winding streets and narrow alleys, past shops that sold glittering jewelry and strange mechanical trinkets. Every step he took seemed deliberate, careful, but not timid. Leora had to force herself to keep up, occasionally ducking behind pillars and corners so that he wouldn't notice her. Then, something unexpected happened. A group of larger aliens blocked the alley ahead. They were known in this district as enforcers of minor thefts and troublemakers. Their movements were loud and intimidating, and most humans would have panicked. Leora's ears turned an even darker shade of purple. She held her breath as the human approached them, unarmed and calm. "Hey, little one of the enforcers said, addressing the human in a gruff voice. "This is our alley, you don't belong here." His tone was sharp, meant to intimidate. The human looked up slowly, his eyes steady. He didn't raise his hands, didn't stumble backward, but there was a quiet authority in the way he spoke. "I'm not here to fight, I'm just passing through." His voice was calm, almost soothing, yet firm. The enforcers looked at each other, unsure. The human's presence somehow made them hesitate. Leora's ears pulsed violently now. She felt a strange mixture of admiration and awe, a physical reaction she didn't understand. No human should have been able to evoke such a response. The enforcers, sensing the shift, exchanged uneasy glances before stepping aside. The human moved past, and Leora's ears remained deep purple, tingling as if they were alive with the emotions of the moment. She followed him into the open market again, her mind racing. How could someone so ordinary in appearance hold such control without even trying? Why did her ears react this way? For the next hour, she trailed him, observing everything he did. He helped a small alien child retrieve a dropped package without asking for thanks, calmly fixed a broken hover cart with a few precise adjustments, and even shared a small meal with a street vendor whose food stall had tipped over in the morning chaos. Every time he acted, her ears flared with color, and she felt emotions she couldn't name: respect, curiosity, and an almost magnetic pull toward him. Other aliens began to notice her odd behavior. Whispers spread through the market. "Why does her skin change like that? Her ears are purple." Leora felt the attention, but it didn't deter her. She didn't care about gossip or judgment. All that mattered was the human in front of her and the strange reaction he brought out of her. As the sun dipped below the domed horizon, casting long, colorful shadows across the market, Leora realized she didn't want this day to end. She wanted to know more about him, to understand why he made her ears change and why she couldn't look away. The thought was both thrilling and frightening. She had never felt this way before, and she didn't know what it meant. The human finally stopped at the edge of the market, near a quiet canal where small transport boats moved supplies silently along the water. He glanced at the canal thoughtfully, then reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. Leora stayed hidden behind a pillar, her ears glowing softly in the dim light. He worked on the device with careful precision, twisting knobs, pressing buttons, and occasionally glancing around as if making sure no one disturbed him. Leora couldn't resist a small step forward. Her ears pulsed a deeper purple than ever before. She didn't just feel curiosity now, she felt connection. Something intangible but real was forming, something that went beyond the color of her ears or the crowded chaos of the market. And in that moment, she knew she couldn't let him leave without knowing more. She didn't understand why, but she needed to follow him, needed to see where he was going, needed to understand the human who had, without a word, changed something fundamental inside her. The market buzzed around her, the smells and colors of the city blending into a chaotic symphony. Aliens moved in hurried streams, unaware of the small story unfolding at the edge of their vision. Leora's ears glowed like small lanterns, pulsing with purple light. She stepped closer, resolved. She would follow him, she decided, even if she didn't yet understand why. And as she did, a thought crossed her mind. Maybe humans weren't weak. Maybe they were more remarkable than anyone had ever imagined. Leora followed the human, careful to keep her distance, but unable to tear her eyes away. The market had given way to narrower streets lined with tall buildings of gleaming metal and glass, reflecting the fading light of Viridian 5 twin suns. Shadows stretched long across the pathways, and the distant hum of machinery filled the air with a constant rhythm. Leora's ears continued to glow purple, stronger and deeper than ever before. Every movement the human made seemed to ripple through her, an invisible force she could not explain. The human, whom she had silently decided to call Ethan in her mind, moved with a purpose that was both precise and natural. He didn't rush, he didn't hesitate. He simply walked, analyzing the world around him as if it were a puzzle to be solved. Leora noticed the way he observed the smallest details. A loose panel on a hovercar, a flickering light above a doorway, even the direction of the wind in the narrow alleys. She had seen aliens like this before, but none had approached problems with the quiet patience and cleverness of a human. As they turned a corner, they entered a quieter part of the city where the crowd thinned. Here, the streets were narrower, the walls taller, and the signs of decay more obvious. Rust streaked the lower portions of buildings, and small cracks in the metal walkways showed signs of long neglect. It was in this section that Leora understood why Ethan had been so careful. This was an area where small problems could quickly become serious, where inattentive travelers might lose their way or fall into trouble. Ethan approached a small, hovering transport cart that had stopped working. Its metal frame leaned awkwardly, and a small panel on its side flickered with red warning lights. Without hesitation, he knelt down and examined it, his fingers brushing over wires and circuits. Leora crouched behind a corner, watching intently. He hummed softly under his breath, making small adjustments with tools she hadn't seen before. It didn't take long before the cart whirred to life, its lights steady and engines humming smoothly. It began moving toward its destination automatically, carrying a stack of supplies. Leora's ears flared purple again, but this time it wasn't just curiosity. It was admiration. The way he could analyze, understand, and fix something so complex without guidance amazed her. Suddenly, a group of local children appeared, chasing one another and laughing, oblivious to the fragile cart. One of them tripped over a loose panel, and the supplies wobbled dangerously. Without thinking, Ethan reached out, steadying the cart with one hand while gently guiding the child out of the way. He smiled warmly at the frightened little alien before returning to the cart. Leora's ears pulsed even deeper, a silent beacon of her emotions. She realized that humans, despite their apparent fragility, had an unusual combination of quick thinking, empathy, and patience. They didn't rely on strength or special abilities. They relied on understanding and cleverness. And that, she thought, was something alien races rarely respected. As the children ran off, laughing again, Ethan stood and adjusted his bag. He looked around briefly, as if sensing something unusual in the air. Leora froze, unsure whether he had noticed her. But he didn't turn toward her. He simply continued down the alley. The deeper they went, the more dangerous the district seemed. Broken machinery littered the streets, and small hovercrafts leaned at awkward angles, waiting to be repaired. Occasionally, an alien moved past with a wary glance, judging Ethan and his human appearance. They muttered among themselves, clearly underestimating him. Leora felt her ears pulse in response, not with fear but with excitement. She wanted him to prove them wrong. She wanted to see him shine. They reached a small plaza where vendors had set up temporary stalls, selling rare components and exotic foods. The plaza was quieter now, the market crowds having moved on, leaving space for a small hoverboard demonstration. A young alien boy struggled to balance on a hoverboard, wobbling dangerously. Ethan noticed immediately. He approached the boy calmly. "Here," he said, kneeling beside him. "Try adjusting your weight like this." He demonstrated a subtle shift in posture, and the boy's balance immediately improved. The child's eyes widened in surprise and joy. Leora watched as his ears pulsed faintly, just like hers. She realized then that Ethan's effect on others wasn't accidental. Humans had a way of inspiring those around them without even speaking loudly or demanding attention. As the sun sank further, shadows lengthened, and the city's lights flickered on. Leora noticed the first sign of trouble. Across the plaza, a small group of alien enforcers moved with purpose. Their attention was fixed on Ethan. They were lean, fast, and clearly skilled at observation. Leora's ears flared purple, sharper than ever as she sensed danger. Ethan noticed them too. He paused briefly, scanning the group with calm precision. He didn't panic. He didn't run. Instead, he subtly adjusted a small device on his bag. Suddenly, a series of small drones activated around him, not to attack, but to create temporary barriers and obstacles, forcing the enforcers to slow down. Leora's jaw dropped. She had seen technology used before, but never so cleverly. Ethan wasn't relying on brute force. He was using intelligence, planning, and ingenuity. The enforcers hesitated, and for a moment the plaza seemed frozen in time. Then one of the enforcers spoke, his voice sharp and commanding. "Human, stop where you are. You don't belong here." Ethan didn't flinch. "I'm not here to cause trouble, I'm just passing through." His tone was firm, calm, and oddly commanding. Leora could feel the weight of his presence, the quiet authority that seemed to radiate from him. The enforcers exchanged glances, clearly unsure. Leora's ears pulsed brighter, almost painfully, as she realized that humans could have a presence that defied expectations. They could command respect not through strength or intimidation, but through calm confidence and clever thinking. Seeing the hesitation, Ethan stepped carefully to the side, guiding a small hoverboard out of the way, and continued walking. The enforcers moved aside, watching him cautiously. Leora let out a silent breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She felt a mixture of relief and admiration. Purple radiated from her ears, a signal of emotions she didn't fully understand but couldn't ignore. As they left the plaza, Ethan continued moving toward the quieter districts of the city. Leora kept her distance, still following. She noticed that even in the shadows, he seemed unafraid. He moved with awareness, anticipating obstacles and adjusting to the environment in ways she could barely keep up with. She realized that humans were not just survivors, they were adapters. Finally, they reached a narrow bridge spanning a canal where transport boats glided silently below. Ethan stopped and looked at the water, scanning it with his eyes. Leora's ears glowed purple again. She felt something inside her shift. She realized that she wanted to understand him, not just watch him from a distance. There was a strange pull she could not explain, a desire to be near him despite the potential danger. Ethan knelt by a small device attached to the bridge, examining it carefully. It seemed to be some kind of control panel for regulating water traffic. He adjusted a few levers, pressed a few buttons, and soon the system hummed to life. Small lights blinked, and the boats below moved smoothly along their paths. Leora could not stop herself from stepping closer. Her ears flared purple again, and she knew she had to speak. She didn't know what to say, but she needed to connect with him to understand why he inspired such a reaction in her. Before she could gather courage, Ethan looked up and directly at her. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Her ears pulsed brighter than ever, and she felt her heart race. He smiled, a small, genuine smile that was neither boastful nor intimidating. "I didn't expect company," he said gently. His voice had a calm warmth that made her feel safe despite the bustling city around them. Leora realized she didn't feel fear. She felt curiosity, excitement, and something warmer she couldn't yet name. I couldn't help but follow you," she admitted softly. Her ears glowed with embarrassment and honesty. "I've never seen anyone like you before." Ethan's eyes twinkled. "And what makes me so special?" he asked, leaning casually against the railing. You're different," she said, struggling to find words. "You notice things, you help without needing anyone to ask, and you're brave, I think." Her ears pulsed, purple spreading softly across them. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Humans, we try to make sense of the world. We try to help where we can. I suppose it's not always obvious, but we notice more than people think." Leora's mind raced. She realized that humans, despite their apparent fragility, had something remarkable inside them. They could adapt, think quickly, inspire trust, and act with intelligence and compassion, all without the specialized traits that aliens valued so highly. She felt admiration, fascination, and something else she couldn't yet name, radiating through her purple ears. For the first time, she saw humans as equals, not weaklings. And she knew that her life, and perhaps the lives of many others, might change because of this realization. She wanted to know more about him, to understand him, and maybe even to help him, though she didn't yet know why. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the city in shades of orange and purple, Leora and Ethan stood on the bridge in quiet understanding. The sounds of the city buzzed around them, but for a moment it felt as though time had slowed, and the world belonged to them alone. Leora's ears glowed a gentle, steady purple, signaling a mixture of awe, curiosity, and something deeper, a connection she couldn't yet explain. She knew that tomorrow she would follow him again, and perhaps, she thought, humans might finally show the universe what they were truly capable of. The next morning, the city woke slowly under the soft light of Viridian 5 twin suns. The streets were quieter than usual, the market vendors setting up their stalls in orderly rows. The hum of machinery blended with the occasional chatter of aliens, creating a rhythm that Leora found oddly comforting. Her ears, normally a pale lavender at rest, flicked faintly purple as she thought about Ethan. She had spent the entire night replaying the events of the previous day in her mind. The more she thought about him, the more her curiosity grew. Humans were not supposed to inspire such reactions in Veridionians, and yet here she was, ears glowing like a lantern in the early morning light. Leora made her way through the winding streets, her steps light and cautious. She didn't know why she was following him again, only that she felt compelled to do so. When she reached the edge of the plaza, she spotted him immediately. Ethan was working on a small transport vehicle that had become stuck in a narrow side street. His movements were calm and precise, his attention entirely on the task. He didn't notice her, and for a moment Leora felt a flicker of disappointment. She watched quietly, her ears turning a deeper shade of purple as she observed him. The vehicle's small wheels were jammed in a pile of debris, and Ethan knelt to examine it, his hands moving skillfully over the mechanisms. It was fascinating to watch how naturally he worked. He didn't struggle, didn't complain, and yet he was solving a problem that most aliens would have considered difficult, if not impossible. Leora's admiration for him grew with every movement. As Ethan lifted the vehicle slightly and adjusted a lever, a group of local merchants began to gather around, curious about the commotion. Some whispered among themselves, noting that humans were generally weak and incapable of such work. Leora's ears flicked purple in response to their skepticism. She could feel the energy in the crowd, a mix of doubt and curiosity. And yet, Ethan did not seem intimidated. He finished the task effortlessly, and the vehicle moved smoothly down the street, carrying its cargo with perfect balance. One of the merchants stepped forward, a tall alien with translucent wings. "Human," he said, his voice sharp but curious. "How do you do that?" "Most of us would take hours, and even then we would fail." Ethan glanced at him and smiled. "It's about understanding how things work and staying calm," he replied simply. "You don't always need strength or special abilities. Sometimes thinking and observing carefully is enough." Leora's ears flared purple, brighter than ever before. She felt a rush of pride, not for herself, but for Ethan. He was proving something she had begun to suspect. Humans were underestimated because they didn't look strong or powerful, but they had an inner resourcefulness that few could match. The crowd of aliens murmured, some nodding in reluctant admiration. A few still looked skeptical, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Leora realized that she was not the only one starting to see humans in a new light. Just as Ethan straightened and prepared to leave, a distant noise caught Leora's attention. A mechanical whirring, followed by the sound of movement through the air. Her ears flicked violently purple, and she instinctively crouched behind a nearby pillar. From the shadows, a group of elite alien enforcers appeared, moving quickly and efficiently. They were sleek, tall, and their movements were precise, like predators tracking their prey. Ethan noticed them as well, his calm demeanor unwavering. He assessed the situation quickly, his eyes scanning for the best route of escape. Leora watched in amazement as he adjusted a small device on his bag, activating a series of drones that floated around him. The drones didn't attack. Instead, they created temporary obstacles, diverting the enforcers' attention and slowing their approach. Leora's ears pulsed a deep, radiant purple. She had never felt such a strong emotional response. It wasn't fear, it was awe, admiration, and an inexplicable sense of connection. Ethan wasn't just clever, he was brilliant. He could analyze the situation, anticipate moves, and act with precision in a way that no one around him seemed capable of matching. The enforcers hesitated, clearly frustrated by the unexpected obstacles. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a commanding voice. "Human." "Stop where you are not welcome here." Ethan remained calm, speaking with quiet authority. "I'm not here to cause trouble, I'm just passing through, I don't want conflict." The enforcers exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to respond. Leora felt her ears pulsing faster, the deep purple spreading like waves across them. She realized that humans could command respect, not through fear or strength, but through calm intelligence and presence. Ethan was teaching them something without even trying. Without warning, one of the enforcers lunged forward, attempting to block Ethan's path. But Ethan moved with such precision and timing that he sidestepped, guiding the enforcer away without any harm. His movements were smooth, deliberate, and clever. Leora gasped softly, ears still glowing, as she realized humans had a kind of power aliens rarely understood, a power of mind and action combined. Once the enforcers were momentarily distracted, Ethan led a careful path through narrow alleys and side streets. He moved quietly but with confidence, using every available tool and observation to navigate safely. Leora followed, her ears still pulsing purple, feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She didn't want him to be caught, not just because she admired him, but because she trusted him. Eventually, they reached a quieter part of the city, a place Leora rarely visited. Small buildings lined the streets, their surfaces worn with age, and the hum of machinery was softer here. Ethan paused and knelt beside a small device embedded in the ground. He adjusted it with careful precision, and the entire street lighting system flickered on smoothly, casting warm light across the cobblestone-like surface. Leora stepped closer, unable to resist. Her ears glowed a brighter purple as she watched him work. She realized that humans had a way of solving problems that wasn't about raw power or alien enhancements. It was about understanding, patience, and the ability to act calmly in the face of uncertainty. Ethan straightened and looked up at her. "You're following me again," he said with a gentle smile. I can't help it," Leora admitted softly, her ears pulsing in embarrassment and honesty. "I've never seen anyone like you before. You're clever and brave, and I don't know, inspiring." Ethan's eyes twinkled. "I'm just a human," he said modestly. "We notice things, try to solve problems, and help when we can. It's not always impressive, but it works." Leora's ears pulsed brighter, the deep purple radiating like a living thing. She realized that humans were not weak. They were not simple. They had an ingenuity and adaptability that made them remarkable, capable of achieving things that aliens had long assumed impossible. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft whirring noise. From the rooftops above, a small mechanical bird-like device landed nearby, carrying a small message. Ethan picked it up carefully, reading its contents. His expression changed slightly, thoughtful and concerned. Leora could sense that the message contained information about a potential challenge or problem ahead. "We need to move carefully," Ethan said quietly. "There are others watching, and not everyone will welcome us." Leora nodded, ears flicking purple in agreement. She realized she had a choice to make. She could stay hidden, keep her distance, or step forward and help him. And in that moment, she decided she would help. Her instincts told her that humans had something important to teach the galaxy, and she wanted to be part of that journey. Together, they moved through the quieter streets, avoiding areas that seemed unsafe, relying on observation and careful planning rather than confrontation. Leora watched Ethan adapt to every situation, using his mind, tools, and intuition to navigate the city. She was amazed at how naturally he worked, how he seemed to turn potential problems into simple solutions without drawing attention to himself. As they reached the edge of the city near the transport docks, the sun's twin rays reflected off the water, casting sparkling patterns across the metallic surfaces. Ethan paused, glancing at the horizon. "We're not completely safe yet," he said. "But we're closer than we were before, and that counts for something." Leora's ears pulsed with a steady, strong purple. She realized that she had begun to see the world differently. Humans were not weak, fragile, or insignificant. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of inspiring trust and admiration in ways that aliens rarely understood. And as she stood beside Ethan, watching him work and planning their next steps, she felt a connection she could not yet explain. It was as if his presence made the world clearer, brighter, and more alive. She wanted to understand him, learn from him, and perhaps, in some small way, help him show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. For the first time, Leora felt hope, not just for herself, but for the humans she had begun to admire. She realized that their journey had only just begun, and that the universe might soon discover what she already knew. Humans were extraordinary in ways no one had expected. And with that thought, she followed Ethan, ears glowing purple, heart full of curiosity and admiration, ready for whatever challenge awaited them next. The city streets of Viridian 5 had taken on a quiet, almost tense atmosphere by mid-morning. The twin suns had climbed higher, casting long beams of warm light through narrow alleys, glinting off metallic surfaces and reflecting in the canals that ran between the buildings. Leora moved alongside Ethan, ears still faintly purple but flicking and pulsing with every movement he made. Today felt different. She could sense it in the rhythm of the city, in the glances of the few aliens who noticed them, and in the subtle shifts of the air. Something important was about to happen. Ethan walked with steady steps, his eyes scanning the rooftops and streets alike. Leora could see that he was thinking ahead, predicting obstacles and possibilities with a clarity she had never seen in anyone else. It was not just cleverness. It was a kind of strategic intuition, a human ability to analyze and act in ways that others overlooked. Every now and then, he adjusted a small device on his bag, fine-tuning tools that seemed ordinary to the casual eye, but were critical to their progress. Their path led them to a busy transport hub near the edge of the city, where massive ships hovered silently, carrying goods and passengers to far-off worlds. The hub was normally a place of efficiency and routine, but today it felt chaotic, as if the energy of the city had concentrated here. Aliens bustled in every direction, moving containers, pushing carts, or negotiating trade deals. The air hummed with the sounds of engines, voices, and the distant calls of automated guides. Leora felt her ears pulse brighter, a deep purple that signaled both excitement and anticipation. Ethan paused near a dock, watching as one particular cargo ship struggled to maintain its balance due to a misaligned loading ramp. The crates teetered precariously, threatening to slide into the water below. Without hesitation, Ethan moved forward. Leora followed closely, heart pounding as she watched him analyze the situation. He didn't panic, didn't shout. Instead, he knelt and examined the mechanism carefully. With a few quick adjustments using his tools, he aligned the ramp perfectly, and the crates shifted smoothly into place. The ship stabilized, and the crew looked on in surprise and relief. Leora's ears flared bright purple, pulsing with admiration. This human, who many had assumed was fragile and weak, was showing an extraordinary ability to solve problems calmly and effectively under pressure. She realized that humans had a kind of power aliens rarely respected, a combination of intelligence, adaptability, and ingenuity. As Ethan stepped back, he noticed a small group of aliens watching from a distance. They were not ordinary passers-by. Their movements were coordinated, precise, and deliberate. Leora's ears flicked violently purple. These were enforcers, and their attention was focused entirely on Ethan. "They've found us," Ethan said quietly, reading the situation instantly. "We need to move carefully." Leora nodded, though she felt a surge of anxiety. She had followed him this far, and now the reality of potential danger pressed close. Yet she trusted him completely, knowing that his mind and his cleverness would guide them safely. Ethan led her through a narrow passageway that ran beneath the larger transport platforms. The walls were lined with pipes and conduits, and the air carried the faint scent of metal and oil. Leora struggled to keep pace, but she didn't want to lose sight of him. Her ears glowed steadily, purple light washing over her as she felt both fear and excitement. From above, the enforcers descended in careful formation, scanning every street and alley. They did not rush, for they were trained to anticipate movement, but their approach was deliberate and methodical. Leora realized that this was more than a simple pursuit. It was a test of strategy and wits. Ethan paused briefly, glancing at the network of pipes and conduits overhead. He tapped a few buttons on his device, and small mechanical hooks extended from it, securing ropes that he could use to climb and maneuver above the ground. He turned to Leora. "Follow me," he instructed. "Trust me." Without hesitation, Leora followed, gripping the ropes as Ethan demonstrated. He moved with grace and precision, and though she struggled at first, she soon found herself matching his pace. Together, they climbed above the ground, moving across the complex network of pipes and beams that crisscrossed the area. From their elevated position, they could see the enforcers below, moving through the streets with growing frustration. Each time the enforcers tried to anticipate their movements, Ethan adjusted, finding new routes, new ways to stay ahead. Leora's ears pulsed purple, a sign of her amazement and respect. Humans, she realized, had an extraordinary ability to adapt and overcome, even when others assumed they were weak. As they moved, Ethan paused above a small open area where several transport bots were parked. He scanned the surroundings carefully, then gestured to Leora. "We can use these to create a diversion," he said. "Watch closely." Ethan tapped a few controls, and the transport bots began moving in a coordinated pattern, blocking the enforcer's line of sight and creating temporary obstacles. The enforcers hesitated, unsure how to proceed, giving Ethan and Leora enough time to continue their escape. Leora felt her ears pulse even brighter, almost painfully so. She realized that humans didn't rely on strength or alien abilities. They relied on creativity, ingenuity, and quick thinking. And that, she thought, was more powerful than most aliens would ever understand. As they moved through the elevated pathways, Ethan pointed to a distant docking platform. "If we can reach that platform, we can blend in with the other workers and lose them completely," he explained. "It will take precision, timing, and patience." Leora nodded, following his lead. They moved silently, carefully timing each step to avoid detection. The enforcers below were growing more frustrated, but Ethan remained calm, guiding her with quiet instructions. Finally, they reached the platform. Ethan signaled for Leora to stay close as they carefully descended. The platform was busy with workers and cargo, but no one paid them any attention. They blended into the crowd, moving with the rhythm of the dock. Leora's ears pulsed a softer purple now, a signal of relief and admiration. Ethan led her to a quiet corner where they could catch their breath. "We made it," he said quietly, glancing around to ensure they were still unnoticed. "But this is only the beginning. There will be more challenges ahead, and we'll need to stay alert and think carefully about each move we make." Leora's heart was still racing, but she felt a deep sense of pride. She had followed him, learned from him, and witnessed firsthand the remarkable abilities of a human. Her ears glowed steadily, a gentle purple light that reflected her growing admiration and connection to him. She realized that humans had a kind of power that aliens rarely acknowledged. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of solving problems in ways that required neither brute strength nor alien enhancements. They had an ability to inspire trust and admiration, to act calmly under pressure, and to turn obstacles into opportunities. As they rested briefly, Leora noticed Ethan scanning a nearby control panel. He adjusted a few settings and activated a small series of drones to monitor the area ahead. "We need to stay prepared," he explained. "Even when it looks calm, there are always variables we haven't accounted for. The key is to anticipate, adapt, and act with precision." Leora nodded, absorbing every word. She felt a surge of determination and curiosity. She wanted to help him, to learn from him, and to understand the human mind that could solve problems and overcome obstacles with such skill and grace. Together, they moved forward again, blending into the activity of the docks. The enforcers had not given up, but Ethan's ingenuity had kept them ahead, proving that humans were not to be underestimated. Leora felt a new sense of confidence growing within her. She realized that she was witnessing something extraordinary, an example of human cleverness and resilience that could change the way aliens perceived their species. As they reached the edge of the dock, Ethan paused and looked out at the horizon. "We're close to safety for now," he said. "But the journey isn't over. There will be more challenges and we'll need to stay vigilant. Humans survive not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest and most adaptable. Remember that." Leora's ears glowed a deep, steady purple. She had learned something profound. Humans had a kind of strength that was invisible to most aliens, a combination of intelligence, ingenuity, and calm courage that could overcome even the most difficult situations. She felt a deep sense of connection to Ethan, admiration for his abilities, and a growing desire to help him show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. And as they moved together toward the outskirts of the city, Leora realized that the universe was about to witness something remarkable. Humans were not weak. Humans were extraordinary. For the first time, Leora felt hope, not just for herself, but for the humans she had come to admire. She knew that their journey would be difficult, but with intelligence, adaptability, and courage, they could overcome any challenge. And she was ready to be part of that story, her ears pulsing purple with every step, a living signal of her admiration, curiosity, and growing trust. The outskirts of Viridian 5 were quieter than any place Leora had ever seen. Large, abandoned shipping platforms stretched into the distance, their metal surfaces reflecting the twin suns like mirrors. A faint wind carried the hum of machinery and the distant calls of automated drones, giving the place a surreal, almost peaceful feeling. Leora's ears glowed softly purple, a constant pulse that reflected her curiosity and anticipation. She knew that what lay ahead would test her and Ethan in ways they hadn't faced before. Ethan moved confidently, scanning the area as they approached a small maintenance hub. His eyes flicked across the control panels, the hovering drones, and the network of narrow pathways that connected the platforms. Despite the quiet, Leora could feel his awareness radiating outward. He noticed every potential obstacle, every loose cable, every uneven surface. And he planned around them, calm and precise. "They're watching," he said softly, almost to himself, adjusting a small control on his bag. "We need to reach the central platform. Once we do, we'll be able to signal the city without drawing attention." Leora nodded, her ears pulsing brighter. She felt both excitement and nerves. She didn't fully understand what Ethan was about to do, but she trusted him completely. Humans, she realized, had a way of thinking that was entirely different from aliens. They didn't rely on strength, weapons, or intimidation. They relied on observation, cleverness, and the ability to turn problems into opportunities. As they moved forward, a faint mechanical whir caught Leora's attention. From the shadows, a small group of enforcers emerged, moving with quiet precision. Their eyes were fixed on Ethan. This time there was no hesitation. Leora's ears flared deep purple, a signal of her fear mixed with awe. She knew that the next moments would be crucial. Ethan didn't panic. Instead, he scanned the environment, calculating their options. "Stay close to me," he instructed. "Follow exactly what I do. Every move matters." Leora followed, trying to match his pace. Ethan led them through a series of narrow catwalks and maintenance tunnels above the ground. From their vantage point, they could see the enforcers moving below, frustrated by their inability to locate them. Ethan tapped a few buttons on his bag, and small drones activated, creating diversions that forced the enforcers to pause or change direction. Leora watched, ears glowing purple with admiration. Every action was deliberate, precise, and clever. Finally, they reached the central platform, a wide, open area surrounded by control stations and communication arrays. Ethan paused, kneeling to examine a console. Leora's curiosity piqued as she watched him work. His hands moved quickly but carefully, adjusting wires and pressing controls. The console hummed to life, displaying a map of the city and the positions of all active enforcers. "This will allow us to coordinate safely," Ethan explained quietly. "We can signal the authorities in the city to assist, but we have to do it without being noticed." Leora nodded, impressed by his calm strategy. She realized that humans had a kind of power that others underestimated. It was not visible strength or alien enhancements. It was intelligence, creativity, and adaptability. Ethan was demonstrating it perfectly, using logic and ingenuity to turn a dangerous situation into an opportunity. Suddenly, the enforcers above realized their position. They moved quickly, converging on the central platform. Leora felt a wave of tension, her ears pulsing a deep purple. Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he activated a small device that projected a series of holographic images, creating false duplicates of their position. The enforcers paused, confused by the illusions. Leora's admiration for him grew. Humans, she realized, could outthink opponents in ways that relied not on force but on cleverness and quick thinking. Every step Ethan took, every move he made, showcased the strength of human ingenuity. The enforcers tried to adapt, but Ethan was always one step ahead. He guided Leora to a control panel and whispered instructions. Together, they adjusted the settings, redirecting drones and lights to create safe paths across the platform. Leora followed every instruction, her ears pulsing brighter with excitement and concentration. By the time the enforcers realized the true path Ethan and Leora were taking, it was already too late. The human and his companion had reached a secure section of the platform, where a series of communication panels allowed them to contact the city authorities. Ethan tapped a few controls, sending a signal that alerted the city to the enforcers' movements and prevented them from following further. Leora watched in awe. Humans didn't just survive, they solved problems, adapted, and turned situations that seemed impossible into victories. Her ears glowed a steady purple, a sign of her admiration, trust, and the deep respect she now felt for him. Ethan stepped back from the console, breathing softly but calmly. "We're safe for now," he said. "But this is a reminder, humans are underestimated at every turn. We survive by thinking, by adapting, and by using the tools we have in ways others can't anticipate." Leora nodded, feeling a sense of pride. She had learned so much in the past days. She realized that humans were extraordinary, capable of remarkable feats without the enhancements or powers that aliens often relied upon. Intelligence, creativity, empathy, and courage, they were the real strengths. The enforcers eventually withdrew, frustrated and defeated not by violence, but by the human ability to outthink them. Leora felt her ears pulse gently, purple light radiating in soft waves. She had witnessed something extraordinary, the quiet, clever, and adaptive power of a human mind. Ethan looked at her, smiling softly. "You've done well," he said. "You trusted me, followed my lead, and adapted alongside me. That's what humans do. We work with what we have, and we find solutions that others can't." Leora's ears pulsed brighter, signaling her happiness and admiration. She realized that humans were not weak or fragile. They were extraordinary in ways the galaxy had never truly understood. As the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the platforms and canals, Leora and Ethan stood together on the secure section of the hub. The city beyond seemed smaller, simpler, and yet full of possibilities. Leora felt a deep connection to Ethan, a bond formed through shared experience, trust, and the understanding of human ingenuity. "They underestimate humans," she said softly, "but they don't see what I see now. They don't know what humans are truly capable of." Ethan nodded. "And that's okay," he replied. "It gives us the chance to show them step by step. We survive, we adapt, and we prove ourselves. That's how humans thrive." Leora's ears pulsed a gentle, steady purple. She realized that she had learned a valuable lesson. Humans were not defined by strength, appearance, or alien standards. Their power lay in their intelligence, creativity, and the ability to adapt to challenges no one else could. Together, they prepared to leave the hub, moving carefully through the quiet platforms. Every step reinforced the lesson Leora had learned. Humans were underestimated, yet capable of extraordinary feats, and she wanted to be part of their journey, to witness and support their remarkable potential. As they descended to the ground and merged with the city streets, Leora noticed that some aliens were watching with newfound curiosity. Whispers spread quietly. "The human, he's clever," one said. Another added, "We underestimated him, maybe we were wrong." Leora's ears flicked softly purple, signaling pride and satisfaction. She realized that humans could change perceptions without fighting, without showing force, simply by being clever, resourceful, and courageous. And she knew that the galaxy was only beginning to understand the potential of humanity. They walked together through the quiet streets, planning their next steps. The city around them seemed calmer, safer, and yet full of possibilities. Leora understood that humans had arrived not to conquer, but to inspire, survive, and shine in ways others never expected. By the time they reached the edge of the city, the twin suns were dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. Leora's ears pulsed gently, a reflection of the calm, pride, and admiration she felt. She knew that this was only the beginning. Humans had demonstrated their strength not through violence, but through intelligence, ingenuity, and courage. And as she stood beside Ethan, looking out over the sprawling city, she felt a surge of hope. The universe was beginning to see what she already knew. Humans were extraordinary, capable of remarkable feats, and destined to leave a mark that no one could ignore. Her ears glowed softly, purple light reflecting the connection, trust, and admiration she had for the human who had shown her a new way to see the galaxy. Together, they would continue their journey, showing not only aliens but the entire universe that humans were not weak, not fragile, but truly extraordinary. The city lights twinkled below, the canals shimmered, and the platforms stretched into the distance. Leora and Ethan walked forward, side by side, ready to face whatever the universe might throw at them. The story of humanity was only beginning, and for the first time the galaxy had a glimpse of its true brilliance.